Do you think God exists?
A designer? I'm open to the idea, of course.
You trust your eyes?
To an extent, yes.
Is there such a thing as a sunrise?
No, it's an illusion. We move, and thus given the illusion that the sun moves.
So there's no sunrise, no sunset. Don't trust your own heart, because your heart, your eyes will tell you there's water on the highway on a hot day. You'll see it shimmering. What do you stop? Do you clean your teeth or have a drink? It's not even there. Your eyes are lying to you. Any sleight of hand magician will say, don't trust your eyes. And the Bible says, he who trusts his heart is a fool. Do you believe in God's existence?
In a sense, I guess.
What sort of sense?
I would say that there's some kind of governing unity that binds humanity and such, but I don't think of, I guess, a divine leader or something like that.
God itself can't be described as a person or a being. It's more of a all-encompassing energy, if you will.
Like an energy drink.
Yes, absolutely.
You are a moral being. You're not like a dog or a cat. You care about justice and truth. That's why you're upset about little kids getting killed and molested, because you're made in God's image. If you were a dog, you couldn't care less. But you're created in God's image with a knowledge of right and wrong. The reason most people aren't Christians is because of what's called idolatry. They've got a wrong concept of what God is. Take Richard Dawkins. Have you heard of him?
Of course, yes.
Richard Dawkins is not an atheist. He's an idolater. What an idolater normally does is pick out treat God like a buffet. When you go to a buffet, you take the nice things, the sweet things that you like. Well, an idolater normally says God is merciful, love, and kind, and they just create a false God with no sense of justice. Richard Dawkins, instead of doing that, he goes through the Old Testament and takes the judgments of God, the wrath of God, and he creates a monster with no sense of mercy or justice.
Riç'rd, in your books, you've been pretty scathing about the God of the Old Testament. Let me just quote you, if I may. The most unpleasant character in all fiction. Misogynistic, homophobic, racist, genocidal, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, and you go on.
To argue for intelligent design is one thing. To use it as evidence of the truth of Christianity is another.
Have I given you something to think about today?
I would say you have. It doesn't change my viewpoint.
This has given you something to think about.
But I don't believe in God or the Bible.
Do you now believe in God?
No.
So you're still an atheist? You still think the book made itself? Are you now no longer an atheist?
Yeah, I still am.
You're holding on to the book made itself? Why would you do that? Are you no longer an atheist?
I would still go on as an atheist.
You know in your heart God exists. I know you know for many reasons. One was, I'm like you. I was running from God too. And two, the Bible says God has given light to every man. And when you put that light out, when you dull that conscience and you're in a knowledge of God's existence, Jesus said, when that light is put out, how great is that darkness? You're like a man who takes the batteries out of a smoke detector because he doesn't like being alarmed by the smoke detector. And all he's doing is doing himself a tremendous disservice, because when he goes to sleep and there's a fire, there's nothing to warn him. And you're going to go to sleep without that conscience telling you what to do because you've dulled it. You've taken the batteries out. And I'm saying, let it be renewed today. Stir up your conscience. Think about your mortality, your death. When the Bible calls an atheist a fool, it doesn't mean a clown or a court jester. When it calls him a fool, it's because he's denying the inner light that God's given to every man, the knowledge of right and wrong. It says, their foolish hearts were darkened, and they embraced a lie rather than the truth. They believed a lie rather than the truth, which is what atheism is. It's a lie. I'm giving you evidence and facts. Just as a physical book, by logic and reason, has a maker, so the instruction book, containing infinite wisdom and intelligence and instructions beyond any human comprehension, is evidence of the existence of an intelligent designer. But the reason you want to fight it is the same reason a thief doesn't want to fight a policeman. The last thing you want is God in your life because you love your porn, you love your premarital sex, your fornication. In a sense, I'm preaching to the choir because I know that you know the Creator exists. The Bible says you're given the truth by God, but you suppress it in unrighteousness. You hold it down. Every single one of us know that there's a Creator, but we don't know the truth of Christianity, and that's what we're called to do as Christians. Bring the truth of Christianity, so hey, you can live forever. This Creator became a person and made it so you can have everlasting life if you're interested. If you're not, It's your choice, but I know that you want to live. So the argument for intelligent design isn't to convince people of the Christian message. It's just to show them the insanity of atheism. Isaac Newton said, atheism is so senseless. It's the father of science. And it is, it's senseless because you're given senses. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Think of your taste buds, how incredible they are. Sitting there waiting for food to come and they all rejoice and leap for joy when there's good food and gives you pleasure. And think of what you're able to look on the flowers and the birds and hear the birds in the morning and see the trees raising their arms in praise to God and the blueness of the sky and the warmth of the sun. That sun's 93 million miles away. We're spinning in space 1,000 miles an hour, round and round. We're going through space at 63,000 miles an hour, and that sun is sending rays 93 million miles, and it's just warm enough to ripen your tomatoes. This is very clear evidence. It's like there's nothing to think about. It's either nothing made everything, or something made everything.
Some things made everything, not something in particular, not one specific thing.
You know what you're trying to do? You're trying to get away from moral responsibility to God. That's really your argument. And that's what the Bible says. There has to be an intelligent mind beyond human reasoning to put DNA together. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So why can't we make the leap from there across to saying, yeah, atheism can't be true?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not really too sure.
Examine your motives. There must be a hidden motive. Let me see if I can guess what it is, okay? See if I can put my finger on it. If you acknowledge that God does exist, you're admitting you're ultimately responsible to him. I'm going right to why you've got such a big problem with this. This is so simple. Someone made the book. Someone created DNA. You don't want to say someone who's intelligent because you're into porn, you're into sex with your girlfriend, it gives you so much pleasure and you don't want to give it up. And if God exists, then that's going to put a big wet blanket on everything. And that's not an exciting thought for someone who loves pornography and fornication and all the things that come with it, because there's incredible pleasure in fornication and pornography. And so what you do is you deny the existence of God because it gives you license to do those things without a feeling of guilt. If God does exist, well, you're in big trouble. So what you do is deny his existence. Am I touching your raw nerve? Am I close?
In a way, yeah.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
It makes sense, I'm still an atheist. Makes sense, I'm still an atheist. The book made itself. It couldn't make itself. Can you see what you're doing?
Yeah.
So
I'm lying to myself.
Yeah. Say that again?
I'm lying to myself.
The Bible puts it this way, and this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deed should be exposed. So, why don't you check your own heart and say, am I really seeking truth here? Or am I trying to run like Adam did from God? You know? Because it's not, Andrew, it's not altogether bad news for an atheist if God does exist. I'll tell you why. It means that you are not just a nothingness that happened because of an accident in space. It means you've got worth, you've got purpose, there's right and wrong. It means there's a way past the thing you have to face, this thing called death that consumes everyone.
What do you worry about? I mean, if midlife crisis is often like facing
death.
your own death.
Yes.
Okay, maybe you'll go to heaven. Maybe you'll die and go to heaven.
Okay, that's I need help.
The Bible says that we're tormented by a fear of death, but we're so proud we don't mention it because it makes us seem vulnerable and weak. It's very rare to speak of this in private, let alone in public.
I need to know what to believe in.
Like what happens when you die?
Yes, I don't want to be a bag of dust.
None of us are really sure of anything that happens after we die.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely sure, 100%. 54 million people a year die. A lot die young. And if God exists, then there's possibly a way past death. And I'm saying, man, there is. There really is. What you got to do is get to square one and soften your heart and say, okay, this is evidence. I'm no longer an atheist. Tell me what you want to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.